What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode. I wanted to take a minute to introduce you to some footage that actually I recorded a little while ago, but as of today, we've made great progress on the WJ, ready to kind of get the suspension into it, get these 1 tons under it. See, I got some the Dana 60 sitting next to me, but there was other things that I needed to take care of first. Some of the small things, some of the engine stuff, repair the window, things like that. So I recorded this a little bit ago, but I wanted to take you through it. Check it out, stay tuned, and I'll see you at the end. Hey guys, we're back. It's a beautiful day here. Actually did a little bit more work last night. Stripped the wheels off the WJ, got it up in the air. We're gonna start putting on the rough country. Right now it's a 4-inch lift. I haven't really decided yet. I might just start with doing the 4-inch lift and keeping it on these axles and kind of seeing where it sits, and then getting the 1 tons prepped for install, because there's obviously going to be some work on those. I've got to trim off the old brackets, clean them up, things like that. We're not going to do too much other than look inside of them too, make sure that the gears, ring and pinion, all that stuff is good to go. It should be. I think they were checked by the yard I got them from prior. So anyways, yesterday got the rest of this together, just reassembled, got the belt on. Haven't put the radiator in yet because we're gonna cut off the front bumper here. We're gonna do some trimming. We got some of this stuff out of the way. There's little pieces and components that sit down here. The horns are underneath on this side. Got the washer bottle out so that there's space there. These are just the headlights, so all of that stuff can get trimmed right out of there, and that's kind of the goal, is we're going to trim all of this out. Kind of made some lines where we're going to cut here. So we're going to cut the outsides of the bumper off, we're going to cut the insides of the bumper off. I still haven't decided. I may still build something. As a reminder, the reason we're really going into this is the Jeep's just taken a lot over the years, and back 6 months ago or so, I wasn't paying attention while I was driving. I looked down for a minute, looked back up. There's a 90-degree turn. I'm going 60 miles an hour. Luckily, it's a pretty rural road. I cut off the road and bounced it off a ditch pretty good. So happy I didn't roll it, because I was probably pretty close to that. But I also hit a deer probably 2 years ago, and it damaged the front of the bumper. And I didn't really notice this, obviously, until I got it off, but it did dent this up a little bit, pushed it back a little bit. So, and actually you can kind of tell too that it's pushed over because the fender doesn't sit flush against it. As soon as I pulled those bolts out, it kind of popped off, whereas the bolts are out over here, but it's still totally flush, but they're disconnected. So, so it's time to clean this thing up anyways. You can see on the bumper too, I mean, there's pieces I busted. It's got a big hole in it. Same thing with part of the other side. So put it up on some jack stands last night, and we're going to start putting in the lift kit, the rough country. It's a 4-inch long arm. I don't think that that's where it's going to stay. Personally, I think what I'm probably going to do, I'm not positive yet, with it out like this, I'm probably going to take some measurements, because the 1 ton axles, these guys still need to be cleaned up. Obviously need to get the brackets off of them. I'm just going to grind some of this stuff down. These down here have the spring pads on them still. We're going to get rid of that. The shock mounting points. Yeah, those can't be reused on the other ones, I don't believe. Yeah, no, they can't. So that stuff's still got to get cleaned up. I want to clean it up, paint it. I'm going to go through it, make sure all the seals are good and things like that. It's an 04 rear end and a 92 front. Dana 60 from a Ford. I didn't do a Super Duty. I got this one for a good deal. Again, I mean, I'm running a 14 bolt custom build in the front end of the Durango. This isn't going to be built to beat on like that thing's going to be. So the plan here is to have something that's more streetable. Right now it's got a limited slip rear, 410 gears, front and rear, disc brakes front and rear. That gives me really what I want to get started. So one of the things I'm doing today, which I've been putting off for a while because it's just not a real fun time, but needs to be done. When I jumped it, and I think this was already an issue, I think it just kind of solidified it. These cables break all the time on the oh, what's it called? I'm gonna blow it. Regulator. That's what I should have said. These cables break all the time on the regulators, the motor, the track. So I've already got it all in here. There's plenty of videos. Actually, I think I got this from A1 Auto or 1A Auto, and that's the video that I watched too to get it on. I love that they've done a really good job just putting together things like that. I like fabricating. I can figure things out that way, but sometimes when I've got to do it from scratch and it's like a, you know, just a simple repair or something like that, a little bit of help and instruction keeps it moving forward and keeps it from taking all day to do something that is not really like a glamorous thing. It's cool to put on a lift kit, not so fun to put on a window regulator. So, but it's one of those things, like I said, that needs to be done. So gonna get these bolts fastened back up, the window reconnected. I've used some tape to keep it up out of the way while I get everything situated. It's not the easiest thing to get this motor in here with the track, but it's all in. Got the door panel in there, so we're just gonna button this thing up, get it back together, and get moving on some other stuff. So stay tuned. So it's been a couple of days, and you know how I know? Because I shaved. I don't usually shave like this. I usually just trim it down a little bit, but I chopped it right off. I look like a baby. Whatever. So we've been making some progress on this thing, and we've been doing the things that we needed to do little bits at a time, like all of the essential things that needed to be done to the motor to tune it up. I broke the back window track, so putting in a new window regulator. We got all the new belt in, the water pump, the thermostat went in. We put in a new timing chain down there. All of that stuff's done, sealed up. This whole thing's still apart, however, because we figured while it's apart, the biggest thing that we wanted to do was I need to start cutting up some of the front bumper. We've got the wheels off of it at this point, and I'm gonna start digging into the suspension. So I would like to put 35s on it. 33s aren't terrible, and that's actually what's on my Dodge right now. Let's take a walk over there real quick. My thought around that is I really like the tires I put on the Dodge. I think these have worked really well for me. It's a Maxxis Buckshot 2. I know, it's like a throwback. The Buckshot, is that even a thing? Yeah, it is, and they're pretty awesome now. I really like the Buckshot 2. Buckshot mutters. I like the sidewall on them. They've lasted really well. So this is essentially like a 33 and a half. I think that's kind of what you would call it. It's a 285, 75, 17. I think what my initial thought is I take this a lot of places, and we use the camper that we have back here as well. There's 6 of them on this rig. So if I got 4 more, I probably put the 4 fresh new ones on the road going rig, and I take 4 of these off and put them on that. I kind of always have like a rotation out. The other aspect of that is I want other tires. I want to try new things. I absolutely love the Nitto. I think it's the Nitto Trail Grappler. I really want to try that tire, so we may not do this. Again, 285, 75, 17. I think that makes it an approximately a 33 and a half inch tire. I would like to run 35s. The other deal is that I think I'd like to run 37s at some point too. But I just need to kind of feel out where this is at. One of the things I've thought about, particularly with this front axle, is these springs kind of sit up on this perch. So not only do they sit, it's kind of hard to tell. Let's see if I can get a good angle on it. They essentially sit in front of the axle a little bit. Not a ton, but a little bit. They sit in front of the axle. Man, these axle tubes are tiny. It sits in front of the axle, but then it also sits up. I'm not even sure how big that is, but it's a couple of inches. I would say it's probably 3 with the spring retainer in there. It might even be like 4 inches up off the top of the axle. So we have to recreate that on the Dana 60. And when I was thinking about it the other day, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just throw the lift kit on and see where 4-inch springs sit, and I'll just put it back down on these. But my problem is I've got the stock 17-inch wheels, and I'm not buying new tires for those because I want to get new wheels and tires, and it's going to be an 8-on 6.5 lug pattern. So I'd really rather just make the change all at once and get these 1 tons going. So I think the plan right now is I'm going to start unbolting all of this stuff. We're going to get the axles out from underneath this thing. I'm probably going to get most of the suspension components off and get stuff ready to get the new kit on. But I think job number one is get the axles out from underneath this and do some measuring so that I can kind of recreate the mounts on the 1-tons. We're just going to go ahead and run it right off the bat. So yeah, I think that with all the fender cutting and the things that we're going to do, I always say we're not going to do it. I'm going to do it. But you are going to do this with me. You're going to help me out. Put your comments as to what I'm doing. Ask me questions. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you've done. If you've done this before, I always learn. I'm actually going to give a shout out to Martin Built on YouTube. It popped up. YouTube loves my WJ questioning algorithm, so it's given me a couple of good channels to look at. He did a great tank tuck, and he gave me some things to think about that somebody else had done a little differently. I did realize too, so I pulled this off the other night, and I had always thought this because I looked at it before. If you look in the back here, this has been, it's stuck, but that's been torched out. I don't even think it's been plasma cut because it's pretty rough. And I used to see that when I would clean up the Jeep because you could see it right next to the exhaust, which is why they cut it out. It's definitely for a Jeep because the bolt pattern's right. I assume it's like a U-Haul hitch. There's nothing on it. But the one thing that was interesting is this has been welded in numerous places all the way around, and that's the gas tank skid plate. So it's been welded. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to get that off. It's not great to be grinding welds off around gas tanks, but I think it should be reasonable. I'm gonna try to figure that out. It's gonna have to come off there somehow. It's interesting that that's what they did with it, but anyways. Square one, we're gonna pull off the axles, gonna get off a lot of the suspension components that we're gonna swap out anyways. We're gonna run the long arm initially with the 4-inch lift, and I think what we're gonna do is build the brackets onto the 1-tons to kind of mimic what's on here. I don't love the hangover on these coil perches. It's not terrible, and maybe I'll come to like it. I thought about trying to recreate it maybe a little bit on the 1-ton. We don't want to lose height, but I also don't like putting it way up on top of the axle like that. To me, it just, I don't know, it looks different. I want a certain clean look, but what I may do, and you have to keep in mind, obviously, I'm going to have to build these tabs for the sway bar. So what I think is going to ultimately happen, though, is the front axle is going to move out a little bit. The center point is going to be more like here because I want to put the spring directly on top instead of having it stick out beyond the axle. It's going to go right on top of the Dana 60, and so it'll push that axle out just a little bit. I don't think we have the same situation in the back. I think the rear ones are exactly in the center, and it's just a spring perch. But those are the type of things that we have to take into consideration in terms of how much higher the front springs sit on those perches than the rear ones do. The rear ones are flat with the rear axle. So yeah, that's my speech for the day. We've got these guys sitting here. They're ready to go. I need to actually get these up in the air too. Most of the stuff is already off. I've already kind of taken one off down there, but I just need to zip all this stuff off. There's an old sway bar on here. I'm wondering, I'm going to probably leave the drag link. Sure, drag link tie rod. I'm going to leave the tie rod on here for now. Just because I think it'll help keep the axle from moving all over the place, but I don't think that that's going to work with what we have. I do have new tie rod and steering setup from Rough Country, so initially my thought was I was going to just lift it and keep it on these axles for the time being, run the setup and see how I liked it, and then add these in after the fact. I just don't want to do that. I'm going to do it all in one shot, and we're going to get it up on the 1 tons and get new wheels and tires for it. That's the other thing, is if I get it on 4 inches of lift and the 1 tons are under it, and it seems like even the 33s are too close, that's when we'll probably make the jump and just go the 6.5 inch springs from Iron Rock off-road and go from there. But that's kind of what I'm thinking at this point. So I'm going to stop talking, and I think we're just going to get to work on this. My neighbors are all looking at me. I'm a little self-conscious. Everyone's popped out. Let's get to work. Let's get to work. So that's a wrap, guys. I appreciate you sticking in there. Again, these are some of the small things, but they're necessary things. So I wanted you to include you on it, and now you kind of know why it's taken time to get some of this other stuff done too. I'm wrapping up the engine compartment and things like that, but really we're getting ready to dive into the suspension. The Dana 60 is all welded up and ready to go. Got a couple of things there to finish on that, get it sprayed, and get it ready to get under there. Gonna do the 14 bolt after that. Need to trim some stuff off and get the truss set on that. But we're really ready to move on to next steps. Excited to share that with you. So appreciate you watching. Stay tuned. Like, subscribe, comment, give me your suggestions, share your thoughts. We appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.